Welcome to Retail's Most Wanted, the podcast that examines the latest issues related to organized retail crime and how retailers and policymakers are fighting back against today's organized crime syndicates. My name is Marty Carpenter, and coming up on today's show, we'll be joined by the Yolo County District Attorney Jeff Reisig out in California, doing some very innovative work to combat organized retail crime. Great conversation. That's coming up next. But first, this message from our sponsors. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with the Attorney General Alliance, where U.S. State Attorneys General collaborate on emerging legal issues and the rule of law at home and across borders. Learn more at agalliance.com. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with LVT, securing physical environments through intelligent automation. Learn more at lvt.com. That's lvt.com. Welcome back. Jeff Reisig has served as the District Attorney of Yolo County, California since 2007. Now, during his tenure, he's focused on initiatives to redirect individuals out of the criminal justice system and into community-based programs. He was the first prosecutor in the nation to launch a third-party hosted data transparency portal, promoting public data access and driving local policy changes to address racial disparities. He also runs one of the most active environmental protection divisions in California and regularly coordinates implicit bias training for his staff. Jeff, thanks so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you, Marty, for having me.
All right, I mentioned that you've been recognized for your innovative approaches to criminal justice reform, including the development of neighborhood court and mental health courts. How do these programs work? How do they intersect with efforts to address the underlying factors that are contributing to organized retail crime, like socioeconomic disparities and say, mental health issues?
Well, the way I look at it, as the prosecutor, I have a toolbox and lots of things in that toolbox to help, deal with bad behavior. And sometimes it's prison, sometimes it's jail, but sometimes offenders actually just need mental health treatment, addiction intervention, or even restorative justice. And so I have focused on building that toolbox with as many different tools as possible. And what we have found, particularly with the retail theft issues that we're seeing, is there are a lot of offenders who really are in need of intensive mental health treatment or addiction treatment. And so we built courts where they are supervised, they are followed through a rigorous treatment protocol, with the whole idea of not only holding them accountable for what they did, but getting them better, getting them back on their feet and reintegrated into our community as law-abiding citizens. And the restorative justice program works the exact same way. It's a different model, obviously. It involves a whole restorative process, which is pretty complex, but it's effective. And that's the bottom line, is when we look at the results for people that go through these alternative programs, the recidivism rate, they're better than just sending somebody to jail.
I understand that you've worked in collaboration with Measures for Justice, which has resulted in the launch of Commons, which is a criminal justice data transparency portal. How has the initiative enhanced public trust and informed your efforts to address ORC in a way that ensures all communities are protected?
Yeah, we were the first in the country, the first DA to get all of our data out there. And I believe that the public has a right to know what's going on in our criminal justice systems, right? I mean, I work for them. It's not my data, it's the people's data. And it's really the only way the public can hold public officials like me accountable, is by seeing what's going on. And it also builds public trust, because when you are transparent and you show the people your work, essentially, it helps them have more trust that their officials are doing their job and doing it responsibly. And so I'm a big believer in that. I believe it not only in my work. I think we need more transparency across the country. And on these issues that we're dealing with right now, again, pointing to retail theft, this is a major crisis in California. And we need to be transparent about the extent of that crisis and what we're doing to intervene to try and stop it. And so that's why we're so committed to just putting as much information out to the public as possible.
So as the first district attorney's office in the nation to implement a race-blind charging program, could you just explain to our audience how this approach works and the potential benefits it offers in promoting fairness in prosecution?
Sure, and I'll just start with this picture in your mind when you see Lady Justice, the statue holding the scales. What do you remember about her other than she's holding scales? She's blindfolded. And the reason Lady Justice is blindfolded is because we as Americans believe that justice should be blind when it comes to execution of penalties and even the simple decision to charge. It shouldn't matter what color anybody is or what anybody looks like. And so we put that into action, and we were the first DA in the country to do this through a partnership with Stanford University. And the simple way to explain it is we get thousands of cases coming every year to my office from police agencies where they're asking me to charge somebody with a crime. I review those reports and I make decisions, but with the race-blind charging tool, our initial review of all of those reports is redacted in that we don't see the race of the person, their hair color, their eye color, their name, anything that would give away the race of either the suspect, a victim, a witness, etc. And so we make an initial charging decision without knowing what the race is of anybody involved. That to us is procedural justice. It is showing and telling the public race really doesn't matter when it comes to charging people with a crime. We launched it in 2021. We were the first DA in the country to do so in partnership with Stanford. It's now been made state law in California, and it's rolling across the country. And what we've seen is it really does help build public confidence that, in these very critical decisions about whether we charge somebody with a crime and take away their liberty potentially, we're not considering race. And that's a really important thing.
Yeah. Throughout your career, you have prosecuted a wide range of criminal cases, violent crimes to white-collar offenses. How do these experiences inform your approach to tackling something like organized retail crime, which often involves this really complex network and strategies from the groups who are engaged in it?
It's a great question. And what we've seen with this crisis, the organized retail crime syndicates that have popped up all over the country, especially in California, is they do operate like organized crime. They do operate like street gangs or very sophisticated white-collar crime groups. And so many of the tools that I developed and utilized again and again in gang prosecutions and white-collar crime prosecutions are absolutely relevant now in prosecuting the organized retail crime. And I mean, I could just go on and on with all of the different things that are the same. I mean, the only difference is the target crime, right? The target crime now for these ORC networks is retail theft. But it could very easily be drugs. It could very, very easily be human trafficking. It could very easily be gang related. They're all very similar. And that's how my experience has helped me really, perfect the approach we use now with ORC.
Yeah, there's sort of a relationship between all these different kinds of crime. And from what we've figured out in talking to attorneys general and other officials around the country on this show is that the organized retail crime portion is often what is funding some of these things that people would say, well, that's organized retail crime may be one thing, but human trafficking is at a whole nother level, or drug trafficking is at another level. And to make that connection that those operations are funded by organized retail crime, do you think most people are starting to understand, or that there's an increase in public awareness that this is a funding mechanism for other criminal activities?
I do think that the public is waking up to that fact, the sophistication of these ORC networks. And part of that's just because you can't ignore it. When you see a lot of these videos with groups going in and hitting these stores and you see who's involved, many of these people actually are recruited or even compelled to commit these crimes, and they're often young. We're finding human trafficking is more interwoven with ORC than anyone ever thought. And I do believe the public is slowly waking up to that. I think what the public is wide awake on, at least in California, is that this is a crisis and we need to do something. It's not working. The laws aren't working in California right now to keep us safe.
Could you discuss any of the recent trends or developments in organized retail crime that you've observed from your work in Yolo County, or even what you've seen across the state of California? And maybe tell us a little bit about how your office is adapting to address these evolving challenges.
Yeah, the biggest evolution I've seen in ORC is, years ago, you used to have, some local offenders that might hit 2 or 3 stores in the same city in the same day, something like that. Now we're dealing with offenders that are hitting stores all up and down California and even across the country sometimes. And they're doing it in the same day, as if they just get in the car and drive and hit every major retailer along the interstate. And so it's become much more complex in that regard, because now we are investigating and managing cases that touch many jurisdictions, sometimes many states. That makes it much more complex legally, sometimes impossible legally, for us to bring those crimes, to aggregate them into one case. And the criminals know that, by the way. And it's one of the reasons why the laws need to be fixed in California on these cross-jurisdictional ORC cases. We need to have the ability to bring all of those cases together in one county when we catch them in one county. And currently that's not an option. We need to fix that.
Yeah. Well, when you say that there are some things that make it impossible to, prosecute, because it's always tougher, right? When you're the guys who have to play by the rules and you're going after guys who get to make up the rules as they go, right? They're not bound by legality. That's the whole part of being a crime. So I wonder, is there anything that jumps out to you where you'd say, man, if we changed this, it would make a huge difference for us? Or, if we made these two adjustments, we could see a really big improvement in the way that we're able to prosecute these crimes?
Yes. I mean, there's two easy answers for that. And this is California specific, but we do not have a recidivist statute in California anymore for retail theft, meaning you can steal up to $950 every day, 10 times a day, every day of the year, and it's a misdemeanor. We can't aggregate that except in very unusual circumstances. So the first change that would make an immediate difference is to bring back a recidivist statute that simply says on the second or third theft, you're eligible to be charged with a felony. If we did that on retail theft, we would see a difference day one. It would be unequivocal. We would see it in a major way. The second big thing is give us that jurisdiction to prosecute ORC rings that not only hit my county, but every other county between here and Mexico, right? So that I can bring all of those cases in one major prosecution. And that's currently not available to me. It should be available to every DA in California, and that's something that we're working on. Both of those are things we're working on.
And no doubt in the current situation, you're sort of fighting with one arm tied behind your back.
That's exactly how it feels, yeah.
Yeah, collaboration is a big deal between law enforcement and retailers and community organizations. It often plays such a crucial role in addressing organized retail crime effectively. So this is a little bit about what we just talked about, but how does your office engage with these types of stakeholders to coordinate efforts and maximize impact in combating retail theft and related offenses?
Yeah, so here's what we've done in my county. And again, it's a first in the country, but we came up with a program called Fast Pass for Retailers. And what it is enhanced collaboration between my office and retailers directly, so that when they have crimes committed in their stores, they can call 911, and they should call 911. But the reality is police agencies are understaffed and overworked and often aren't able to respond. But with the Fast Pass program, they can send the information on that crime directly to my office. We have people that are 24/7 available to the retailers to take that information, answer questions, and help build a case literally within hours or days after the crime occurs, which then means as the ultimate decision maker, the DA, I'm charging these within days or weeks instead of months and months or even years through the normal process. We launched this in August of last year. We're seeing incredible results. We've filed, 60, 70 cases at this point, mostly felonies, and we're making a real difference. And it's totally premised on collaboration between the retailers, the DAs, and then law enforcement as well. Law enforcement loves this program because we're helping them on the front end, and on the back end, when we actually get warrants issued for the arrest of these individuals, the police agencies go out and serve them and get people into custody, again, in days instead of months. So this is just one example of how, leveraging these relationships is paying off.
DA Reisig, thanks so much for your information today and for fighting back against organized retail crime. We really appreciate you being on the show with us today.
Thank you, Marty.
All right, that's it for this episode of Retail's Most Wanted. Thanks to our presenting sponsors, LVT and the Attorney General Alliance. Don't forget to hit the subscribe or follow button so you can catch each new episode. We put out about 3 each month. We're also on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Links are in the show notes below. Thanks everyone for being with us, and as always, keep up the good fight.